Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Workers' Party of Britain National Members Council meeting, where we're about to hear a address from the party leader, George Galloway. Over to you, George.
Thank you very much, and welcome, comrades, to the first ever meeting of the National Members Council. So an auspicious day, and this first part of it will be public, and then we will get down to our private internal business. And I'll be much shorter than normal because I get plenty of opportunity on Tuesday nights to adumbrate all the reasons why people should be supporting and joining the Workers' Party of Britain. So just brief remarks really from me, and one concrete suggestion. The first point to make is that considering the absolutely extraordinary societal, economic, political circumstances of the year 2020, this has been a phenomenal success story for the Workers' Party of Britain. The party launched in the middle, I think, of December, so about 7 months ago, and already we can say we are the fastest growing political organization in Britain, and by a country mile, I would suspect. A phenomenal growth. Thousands and thousands and thousands of supporters and applicants and members have flooded towards the Workers' Party in just 7 months. And this despite Christmas and then the COVID-19 lockdown, which has confined our political activity to the ether. Our work on our Twitter handle, our Facebook pages, our Zoom meetings every Tuesday and Wednesday, plus other Zoom meetings that I understand are going on at a regional level. The last figure I saw, and that was a couple of weeks ago, was that 500,000 views of our work online have already been racked up. 500,000 views in 7 months. Now, mostly they are for the Tuesday night meetings, which you could say are rallies. People are joining us from all over the world, it's true, for at least some of those meetings. But an organization growing as fast as us and attracting the audience that we are would have to be judged a success story based on its first 7 months of life. Of course, once the lockdown is properly over and the political aftermath or backwash of the COVID-19 crisis begins to be seen and felt, then the Workers' Party will be as busy as we are possibly able to be in putting ourselves and our ideas, offering leadership in every important area where struggle, where clash of class against class breaks out. And we've already started to do that in this, as it were, virtual world that we are in. Let me just give one example, though there are several, at P&O, at Rolls-Royce, at Bentley. There are already industrial struggles of significance which are breaking out, and we are offering our support and our perspective to all of the workers in all of those battles. But the one at BA has a specific importance for me. I was, as you know, for a very long time, a sponsored member of Parliament by the Transport and General Workers Union, now Unite, which is the major union organizing the workforce at BA. And Now that BA is again in the firing line, I am recalling the many nights, for those of you who were regular listeners, on my Talk Sport radio show, when I would resolutely support the demands of the British Airways workforce. I had a special relationship with them, not only through the union, but as a customer, flying twice every week at least, up and down to Glasgow, and always BA, going back to its publicly owned days, through its privatized days, through its cheapening and coarsening and ultra-exploitative Willie Walsh days, and now again I find myself in action in support of the British Airways workers. This is not just important as a trade union matter. As you probably are aware, BA and its management, Willie Walsh, are trying to sack 42,000 workers and then re-employ a proportion of them on worse terms and conditions than they currently enjoy. And those terms and conditions have had to be fought for fiercely and defended resolutely by the union, by the workforce over many, many years. And so this is a red rag to a bull for me, and I would like to think for all in the workers' movement, all who describe themselves as socialists. So I call on others outside of the Workers' Party to avert their eyes, to drag themselves away from other matters, however colourful, however interesting, however exciting, to what is our primary responsibility, which is to agitate amongst, to organise and to educate the working class in Britain, to arm them, steel them to the onslaughts to come. And of course, given the likely course of economic events that will follow the COVID-19 pandemic, there will be many, many such causes with which we will have to be identified. We will have to properly analyze. We will have to properly point a way forward to encourage the unions, to encourage the workers to stand firm and to calibrate their demands realistically, of course, but also in the most militant way to defend the interests of the workforce. As somebody once said, the enemy is at home. And whilst we are, of course, interested in events around the world, and we're interested in societal events taking place in our own country, as a Workers' Party, our first responsibility is to the working class in Britain, whatever colour they are, wherever they came from, whenever they came, however they pray. None of these things matter to us at all. If you are a working class person in Britain, you will have our support if people come to take things away from you that you have, and you will have our support if you move on to the offensive to make things better for you as a worker and for your family. So in this swirl of events, we have a primary duty of clarity. We have to analyze any and all matter, clearly express and explain it clearly, hoist our banner and ask people to join us. And the more clear we are, the better we communicate our messages, the more people will flock to our banner. But we are already now well into 5 figures in 7 months, a 5-figure number in 7 months of people who are in and around us. And that is not just, I think, a tribute to our work so far, but also tribute, a backhanded one, to the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer. I don't know if Sir Keir is actually an agent of ours. I don't know if he's a Russian agent or a Chinese agent or a Workers' Party agent, but he is doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Sir Keir. Hats off to you, because everything that you do and say is causing a steady hemorrhage of members from your bankrupted, politically bankrupted organization, and many of them coming our way. And so we're deeply grateful, sire, for your efforts, and long may they continue. I see the latest wheeze is to demand that Keir Starmer expel from the Labour Party one Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott and one or two lesser known individuals. This is never ending and will never end because the Blairites have their hand on the tiller, and they are never going to relinquish it. And those remaining within the Labour Party, in the hope that the tide will turn, are, I'm sorry to say, living in a bubble, living in self-denial, living in self-delusion. This is never going to change. Keir Starmer and the Blair gang are back in control. And they may or may not expel people like Jeremy Corbyn. They probably won't, but you can never tell. But there's no need to expel him or them because they are now absolutely marginal to the future of the British Labour Party. They will never be back. They will forever be crying like Cassandra in the wilderness as their party sails as far distant from the politics inside Labour over the last 4 or 5 years as it's possible to imagine. So events, as Harold Macmillan said, events, dear boy, events, all the events are ineluctably moving in our favor. The class consciousness and class conflict, which will inevitably follow the COVID-19 period, the lurch, surge back to Blairism of the Labour Party, the hopelessness of other organizations who have erected their camp and their banners many decades hence, but have never made any significant progress. We believe because their politics, their tactics, and their strategy were wrong, but for whatever reason, those faded icons of what they call the far left are not going to suddenly be illuminated as the future for the British working class. We are the new kids on the block, and people like what we have to say because we are different. And my penultimate point, therefore, is this. I see all the time people make reference to how free they feel, finally, in many cases, to think and speak freely about their politics. Many people have been, for reasons of self-censorship or censorship or fear of discipline, unable properly to express themselves on issues like Palestine, for example, for fear of the witch hunt inside the Labour Party, or issues like identity politics that we dealt with in our last public meeting last Tuesday. Numbers of viewers on that are still steadily rising because they feared the woke dictatorship of political correctness and didn't necessarily feel sure enough about their vocabulary, about their pronouns in discussing it. These two issues, and there are others, are places where in the Workers' Party we have now absolutely distinctive standpoints and absolute freedom amongst our members to discuss and to proselytize on those two subjects. And I'm proud of that. I've always felt free to speak my mind. That's why I ended up being expelled from the Labour Party. And I'm not going to change that now, but there are many. Because our members are mainly from the Labour Party. Paul and I were just going through this the other day. Not the majority, but the plurality of our membership growth has come from the Labour Party. But to some degree, a surprise to me, the second most significant group or section now in the Workers' Party are people who have not been involved in party politics before. In other words, people of no party. There are people from the Brexit Party, people from UKIP, one or two, not many, people from other left-wing parties. But isn't that interesting that the second largest group within the Workers' Party now is people who came from no party, but who have come across us and recognized in us as people who stand up for and articulate the kind of things that they believe in. My last words, therefore, Dan and comrades, are these. You may think me old-fashioned, even quaint, but as Paul read out at the beginning, both my wife and I are members of this members' council and indeed, of course, the party. But one of the most heartening things for me is the number, because I've been through the lists, the number of husbands and wives, partners, families that are in the Workers' Party. And that really fills me with a great deal of happiness. I think that this marks a significant advance. You know, when I was first involved in political activity, it was almost always the father who went out to political meetings. It was almost always the father who dealt with the politics. I lived and worked in an era where you might canvass a door and the woman would come to the door and you'd ask if she was voting Labour and she would answer, well, I'll need to wait till my husband gets in. Now, here in the Workers' Party, we've got man and wife and often teenage children in the party. And that is a very healthy situation indeed. And it will make for much happier party political work. It will make for much greater activity. So if you'll permit me, Dan, and through you to Paul, I want to propose as an amendment, as it were, to the report that you are about to give, that we declare for a year at least, or maybe for the rest of this year, that we allow family membership at no extra cost, so that we can enroll the partners, the wives, the husbands of existing members and their teenage children, because I think that would accentuate the landmark that I have myself been looking out for and stumbled upon when going through with you the members' lists the other day. I think that would be a unique thing. No other party does that. Our membership fees are cheap, to be sure. £1 a week is not an expensive membership fee, but if our members had to pay £1 a week each for man, wife, son, daughter, for example, that would become onerous. So I think it would be a good gesture and would be a good sign of the family-friendly politics that we seek to represent. I love to see people's children playing around at the back of the hall or around our feet at public meetings. I think it's the best way to ensure a long-term growth in Workers' Party involvement and indeed membership. So with those few remarks, I hand it back to Dan and to my comrades in the leadership to take us through the remaining parts of the business, which of course will necessarily be private. But to those watching in this public session, I thank you once again and encourage you to come back next Tuesday when I shall be giving my next address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. And to everyone watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, share our material far and wide, get the word out there. But if you want to go a little step further, get involved, join the conversation with, as George pointed out, these wonderful people, eloquent family people who are really politically engaged and represent the best of British workers, I think. Go to workerspartybritain.org, sign up, come and get involved in the conversation. You can join us online for now, and we're starting to organise regionally as well, so you can get involved in regional activities. So join up today.